Welcome to Pencil Leadership. I'm Chris Anderson, success and lifestyle entrepreneur, and I'm on a mission to help you realize your full potential so you can leave a positive mark on the world. So if you're ready, take out your pencils and let's begin. And if you want to make a difference in the lives of others, share this episode, go over to Apple Podcasts and follow us there to leave a positive rating and review. And together we can leave a bigger positive mark on the world. Hey, welcome back to another recording of Pencil Leadership. I am Chris Anderson, your host, and I'm looking forward to today's conversation. And I think most of you will as well, especially if you are trying to grow your brand or business on LinkedIn. We have, the magician, the expert of LinkedIn. I'll let him kind of talk about a little bit about it, but he's done amazing on LinkedIn. And so we got Jordan Mendoza on the show today, and looking forward to just me personally picking his brain, asking a lot of questions so I can get better on LinkedIn. And I hope you guys will take something from it as well. So looking forward to that. Jordan, welcome to Pencil Leadership today.
Hey, it's an honor to be here, Chris. Anytime I get a chance to speak and potentially help somebody get better, that's what I'm all about. So
absolutely. And I'd love for you, I'm going to kind of give you the floor, the stage for a second, and just tell everybody about yourself, high level, and what you do.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, first off, I am a father of 5. Yep. 5 kids. I don't know if we're the crazy ones or if we're the smart ones. Time will tell for sure. But yeah, father of 5, married to my wife, Natalie. And we've got a couple things going on. I've got a couple businesses. I've got a podcast that's ranked in the top 1.5% globally called Blaze Your Own Trail. And I help a lot of businesses, with digital marketing, sales, and leadership.
Awesome. Yeah. And it's 5 kids. I joke with my wife, we can have 4, we have 6. And she's like, I don't know, we got 1 right now and that's okay. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Time will tell, kind of the same thing, but that's awesome, man, that you're able to, raise 5 kids, and you spend time with your wife and have a couple businesses and a successful podcast. Just a testament to what you do, who you are. And so that's really cool. And thankful to have you on the show. Pencil Leadership's getting there. We're in the 3% area, and super grateful for that. And everyone who tunes in and listens in. So excited now to bring you and your expertise towards those who are listening in. So looking forward to diving into LinkedIn. I think it's what we're going to head with this. Drew Larison, thanks for tuning in, buddy. Good morning. Thanks for all those tuning in live and watching live. So hope you can take something away from this. But yeah, Jordan, LinkedIn, man, I know you went in the span of like 8 to 9 months and grew your following to like 20,000, right? Or had amassed 20,000 followers through your strategies, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. It was, so really the journey kind of started, I've had a LinkedIn account forever, like most people, right? And
right.
It was the place that you went on when you wanted to showcase, like I looked at it like if I got a promotion, I wanted the world to know about this. And I would go and do a post and show people that I got this new role, or maybe supporting a colleague that had a work anniversary or maybe a birthday, right? It was almost used for those type of milestones. And if you were looking for a job, right? Because it was like the job place that was competing with Indeed. Like those were kind of the 2 big job networks. And then something started to change in 2019 when they introduced video, right? People were all of a sudden we're starting to see video on LinkedIn. And around April is around the time I started getting active. And it was actually because Chris, my company, I was the training manager, and they gave me a goal. And they said, we want you to find a social platform that we can get associates involved in. Maybe they can learn outside of the company and get information. And so I started researching, and I kind of stumbled upon LinkedIn. And it's kind of funny looking back. And this is literally, this will be good context for the audience. April of 19, my first video, ready? It was a video where I said, hey, I'm looking for someone that does social media, maybe social media marketing, understands that I'm trying to find a platform to help my associates learn. Right? So this is 2019. What do I do today, Chris?
You do that thing.
I use social media to help people learn to bring in revenue for their business. Right. So, I mean, I look at it, I'm like, a few years ago, I didn't know the space. And now people look at me like an expert. And it's not because I'm an expert, it's because I may have more information than them, right? I know
Exactly.
a little bit more than them. And really, I hope this is helpful for someone to hear. You don't have to know it all because no one does, but you have to be at least a little bit ahead of somebody in
Mhm.
order to teach them. And the beautiful thing about teaching, because I know I did it for free for a lot of 2019 until my wife kind of fussed at me. She's like, "Are you charging for this, bro? Like, what are you doing?" And so I know that you've got it. But when you teach, you soak that knowledge back
Mm,
up. Every time
yeah.
you teach, you're gaining that again. And that's why in Japan they say teaching is learning twice. Each time you teach, you learn
Yep.
it again. And so what happened, Chris, is I was putting in reps. I didn't realize it, but I was literally getting on a call with a guy like you, and I would give him tips, and they would go use
Mhm.
it, and it would work. And so I started to essentially build my 12-week program. The early days of it was by testing out what I was doing, testing that same strategy with other people. They were having success. And then I would do it with company pages. I would find success there. And that kind of started building out the framework.
Yeah, that's and I it's just so cool because, kind of we connected, I think, early on too, way back in the day, like when we both way back in the day, I say like it's been decades, but when we both kind of were starting out and, I was starting out pencil leadership and, dabbling in, business and what that looked like. And, you know, seeing it morph and change into now having pencil leadership and elevate media where we do podcast production, same kind of thing. I was doing podcasting through pencil leadership and helping people kind of put pieces together in their lives. And then I had people asking me, how do you do a podcast? How do you launch a podcast? How do you market? How do you grow your listenership? And so do kind of same kind of thing. He was doing a lot of it for free. How do you edit? And just kind of eventually, hey, maybe I should start creating this as revenue and
Yeah,
kind of start building it. But yeah, I loved what you said and how the Japanese said, like, when you teach, you're learning twice. I think that's so true. Being able to, because you have to break it down specifically in a certain way when you're teaching to people,
100%. Yeah,
because you have to understand it at a different level and be able to present that to people in a way that they can take in. So I think that was a really, really good point you made there. And so, and I'm sure when you're on this journey, diving into LinkedIn and trying to understand it better, in 2019, we've seen probably a lot of changes
yeah,
on that platform. What have been some of the good and bad and, let's go Clint Eastwood, and ugly
yeah.
changes that you've seen on LinkedIn through this time period you've been focusing on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think good. We're seeing a lot more creators.
Mm,
I think some people would look at that and say, well, if there's less people creating, then I'm going to get more views and I'm going to grow more. And what I say to that is, we want more people creating, right? It's more ideas, it's more innovation, it's more content out there. And so I've loved the fact that there's more people actually attempting to create, because you can
hmm
never get better at anything if you don't put in those reps, if you don't
right.
continuously put out content. And that's why when I'm working with clients, people say, hey, I took 2 days off and I noticed things changed.
Mm.
Why did they change? Right? Because
Right.
you took 2 days off. And so the algorithms, it doesn't matter what platform you're on, and I'm not trying to look at this like the big bad algorithm, but algorithms, the way that they work is they go based off of the data. And
hmm
so if you're putting out content consistently, the algorithm naturally wants to show it to more people.
Yeah.
And so when you stop creating, it says, where have you been at, bro? Like, you haven't been
Yeah.
around for a little bit. Let's show it to this group, and then we'll see how it performs, and then we'll show it to a larger group of people.
You love listening to podcasts, but have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? Maybe you want to build a brand, grow your business, or are looking for an excuse to talk about your favorite hobby. Whatever your reason for making a podcast, Buzzsprout is the place to start. Since 2009, Buzzsprout has helped over 300,000 people launch their own podcasts. Buzzsprout walks you step by step through the whole process and will give you powerful tools to start, grow, and monetize your podcast. Ready to get started? Click the link in the show notes to get our free step-by-step guide to starting your podcast today.
Yeah, and I think consistency is huge, and just sticking with it. It takes time. Like you said, you started 2019. I started in 2019, and we're we're not experts, but, we're a little farther ahead than the people we're helping, like you said earlier, and, that's the key is just sticking with it, the ups and downs, the good, the bad, the uglies, all that, and just keep pushing forward because there's gonna be changes on the platforms, there are gonna be changes in the algorithm, whatever it is, and if you can just stay consistent and continue to learn what content your audience is seeking and just continually put that out there, you're going to see improvement over time. And, got to give a shout out to Will. He says, love this cooking eggs while listening to business talk. Thanks, man. Well, hey, we're glad you're tuning in and listening. If you have
Thanks,
any
Will.
questions, let us know on LinkedIn. But yeah, Jordan. So with that, right now, 2022, March, which is crazy. We're already in March.
I know, man.
Golly. But what do you see LinkedIn? Do you see LinkedIn going a certain direction this year with maybe some new things that are coming out that not many know of that you might know, or just the direction the platform's headed before we dive into how to actually utilize LinkedIn to grow?
Yeah, I think the few things I've noticed that they're really making pushes towards recently is the creator community. They just have their first cohort of the, LinkedIn Creator Accelerator. I think it's, 10 or 12-week program where they're teaching people and they're, giving them inside looks at some of the stuff that's releasing, maybe features that other users don't have. And so what I like about that is you get real people, you get real case studies of people, testing these things out and trying to figure it out before the masses do. And of course, for LinkedIn, that's great for them because they're using people who are already, if they're selecting you, there's a reason, right? There's a
Hmm.
reason that they see you, they're watching, they're seeing your content. Maybe you've got a positive message, something like that. And so the fact that they're investing in creators, I think is huge, and
Yeah.
we're seeing that with TikTok. We see that with Instagram, with Reels. I mean, if I hear people say they don't have a job, well, start creating Reels and they'll actually give you bonuses. Like I've got one
Hmm.
right now where I can earn up to $1,000 just by putting out videos that I'm going to put
Yep.
out anyways. And so, there's no shortage of ways to monetize your brand, and there's no
Mm.
better time, I feel like, in history than today. The best time was yesterday. The second best time is now to
Yep.
start putting your message out, because you can become your own media system, and that's
Hmm.
essentially what I've done, with LinkedIn. My goal is to reach as many people as I can, to put out a positive message,
Yep.
to show them what's possible, to blaze their own trail. That's what my whole brand is about. And
Yep.
so I want as large of an audience as I can get, not for the vanity's sake, but so that I can reach and impact. And the only way to get there is to put out content, is to show up consistently. It's to, engage with your audience, and then take the online offline. Don't just connect with people on the platform, but maybe jump on a call like this or a live interview, and really get to know people. Because the missing ingredient that I see on LinkedIn today is people aren't really about building contextual relationships. And
Mm.
business is about relationships, because if you have a
Yeah.
relationship, that's sustainable. Transactions are easy, folks. Like I can go do a transaction any day of the week. It means nothing, but relationships take time, and you
Yep.
got to nurture them. And so when I think about what does the sales cycle of the platform look like, right? It's make sure your profile's dialed in. It's got to be
Yeah.
optimized so that you can reach the maximum possibility of viewing potential, because that's your intro to people. From there, make sure you're creating content that either is, empowering,
Mm.
engaging, inspiring, entertaining, consistently engage with that audience. Make sure you're communicating and nurturing relationships, and then take the online offline. That's
Yeah.
really essentially, at the end of the day, that's what the sales cycle of the platform looks like.
Absolutely. And it's such a, I mean, depending on if that's where your audience, of course, is there,
Oh,
it's
they're
such a good
there. I don't
platform.
care what you
Yeah,
see.
it's
The
true. I was
audience is
about to
there.
say,
Like, I would love to argue with anyone that says they can't find clients or people or book readers or podcast listeners or food eaters. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
yeah,
don't care what you do. Your clients are there. You just might not know how to find them.
that's a good
So
point. And
that's what I do, is I'm teaching people how to actually find their ideal audience, and then turn those into potential business partnerships,
mhm.
right? Strategic things like we're doing together,
Yeah,
right? And that's what
yeah,
it's all about. It's about, how do we leverage this platform for the good? And
yeah.
and that means business, that means relationships.
And I think that's a great point too, because I think when I first, kind of dabbled in LinkedIn, and man, I don't even remember how long ago it was, but I think back then, I think it was less, not saturated, but less used, I guess. But now so many people are utilizing it and seeing the benefit. I think, yeah, exactly to your point, you can find your audience, your target market there for sure. So let's pivot a little with that, because we're on LinkedIn now. We're trying to get in front of that target audience, that target market. You mentioned optimizing your profile.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? I know there's a lot on the profile that we can be digging into, or are there some main areas we need to focus on?
Yeah, 100%.
And how? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you guys the strategy. So since this is called pencil leadership, I'm hoping you have a pencil. All right.
Yes.
And if you don't, we're actually going to pause just for a second. And I'm going to give you guys, there we go. He's got a pencil. Give you guys time, like literally take notes, because
Yep.
if you make these changes, and this is not a guess because I help clients with this all the time, if you implement what I'm going to tell you, you will actually see positive results. And that's what I want for anyone that's going to watch or listen to this, or maybe you're watching this live. Actually, right now, before we move forward, if you're watching this live, type in the comments the word live. All right. If you're watching this on the replay, which will be after he publishes this, type in hashtag replay. All right. And then that way Chris is going to, right. Is that helpful, Chris? That way we
absolutely.
know who's engaging. Do we have any comments that have been coming in? Any livers, anyone watching? So that way
not at this moment. Hopefully we do here in a second.
Perfect. And maybe we'll end up seeing some replays tomorrow, which is fine. So
for sure.
When you get to this place, though, here's what you want to think about. So every platform, I don't care if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all of them, your bio has to be optimized, right? Because that's what people are looking at first. It's like your first impression. Okay, so LinkedIn has some really unique features that you are able to actually optimize. And the first one is actually your cover image. Okay, this is the thing that most of you watching this, it's probably blank. It's their standard LinkedIn banner that you haven't changed because frankly, you just didn't think it was a big idea or a big deal, right? So I'm going to tell you, folks, this is a massive deal because this is essentially your free billboard that anybody that lands on the platform can literally look at and learn about you. Okay, so if you are actually on LinkedIn right now, or if you're watching this on LinkedIn and you go to my platform, you clearly know what I do. It says, I help entrepreneurs blaze their own trail. Of course, it's a little vague. I want it to be. It's got my company logo on one side. It's got my podcast logo. It's got places on social you can find me, an image of me. And so I'm highlighting exactly what I want you to see to get you interested to keep looking down and read more. Does that make sense, Chris?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
So that's actually phase one. That's where I would start. I would get that billboard because, folks, billboards are not cheap. You know, if you're like a business that wants to invest in a billboard on the side of the road, you're going to be spending some coin. And guess what, folks? This is how much LinkedIn charges you for that. It's zero.
Right.
So you might as well maximize it.
Yeah.
Think about a call to action. Maybe, hey, DM me for leadership ideas, right? Hey, I'd love to connect. Send me a message, right? Test things out. That's what marketing is all about, is it's testing. If you have an event coming up, you know, what I would have done for this, Chris, is I would have changed the billboard and said, interviewing Jordan Mendoza on March 1st, right? And then people would see that. It would draw attention to the event, right? So there's so many things you can do, I won't get into more strategy, but hopefully, is that helpful to start out with?
Yeah, no, definitely. Because I think, you think that's the first thing people see. And I realized, I kind of was checking out mine while you were talking about it. And I didn't realize when you're going live on video,
it takes up that space.
Yeah, the live video takes up that banner. That's kind of neat. So, and we have people tuning in. So thanks guys for commenting and everything. So, okay. So the banner.
So that's step one.
Yeah.
I would look at that and say that is kind of ground zero. That's step one because it's the largest piece of real estate outside of your about summary. But it's the biggest visual piece of real estate you have.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing I would do is look at that picture of you. Okay. If you have a picture, Chris, and you're wearing a suit and tie, I'm like, bro, that's not you. That might have been you in 2017 before the pen. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, so make sure your picture represents you today.
Yeah.
Not like yesterday or 2019 you, or I just graduated college with my cap on version of, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
We see those types of things, but make sure it's a representation of you, because here's the thing, folks. When you're on LinkedIn, we're dealing with humans. There's a human on the other side of every profile. Okay. And so if people can relate to you as a human, business is a little easier, and you're
Yeah.
gonna make it's gonna make sense as we're moving our way down, because there's a few more things I want to share.
Okay.
So you got a question about that image, or you okay to go down?
No, yeah, that's
Okay,
good. And I think making it clear. So on mine, I took the background away, so it's just my face
sure.
and a colorful match the brand coloring of Elevate behind me.
Yep.
That's a good strategy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Okay.
test it out.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in testing.
What
Test it,
about the
change it out.
video that goes with the picture you can do? Like an intro video? Is
Yeah,
that
so Chris now is jumping into pro tips. So
oh snap. Okay.
if you want the pro tips on how to turn your picture into a video, DM me on Instagram the
Yeah.
word blaze. Okay, so if you want
Cool.
to learn how to do that, we don't have time for that today, unfortunately, but because we got to move on, Chris. But let's go
Yeah,
down right to that headline text.
for
Right, that's
sure.
kind of your next piece of real estate. So there's a few ways to tackle it. I see people doing heavy on the keyword side, where
Mhm.
they're trying to get love and search from those keywords.
Yeah.
And then you can also do what I've done is I start with a service statement. So mine
Okay.
says, I help service providers build authority and monetize social media.
Cool.
And the reason why I'm doing that is if anyone types into search service providers or service providers, social media, I'm actually going to be found based on that text. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
In addition to some of those other keywords that are in there, like podcast host,
Mhm.
speaker, coach. I also have, you'll notice, a call to action at the very end. It says, follow me for daily positive content, right?
Okay.
Because I'm trying to tell my audience what to do. We as
Yeah.
humans, we need to be told what to do. And so when I think strategy on the headline, I usually do service statement, keywords that are relevant to being found, that I want to be found for, and then call to action at the very end.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've been playing around with that. So I just filled it with keywords at one point, and then I just recently changed it to do basically a service or a fact about why having a podcast is important, because 70% of listeners uh, take action on products or services, and then I go
Awesome.
into say we help entrepreneurs. So I just changed it, kind of
Yep.
kind of testing that, because when you send a message, you see that first percentage
Yep.
type thing. And so, yeah, I send it. So I'm doing kind of like the testing with it as well, and changing from the keywords, but
Very good. That's
yeah.
good. Yeah, you got
Okay.
to test it, and that's
Yep.
something, again, think about what's happening in your world.
Right.
Is there an event? Is there because you have, again, this is real estate, folks. This is
Mm-hmm.
what people see. And you made a great point. That's what people see, is that first line when
Yeah.
they're making a decision whether they're going to connect with you or not. So what do you want them to see? What do you want them to know? Those are the questions I would ask yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So that is with the headline. So kind
Yep.
of we got all the kind of the main stuff you first see. What would
Yep.
be the next thing in
Yeah,
optimizing?
yeah. The next thing we got to tackle is that about summary. And
Mm.
this one is a beast, folks. And I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you why it's a beast. You've got 2,600 characters, and I can tell you this: most people watching haven't even touched that amount of real estate that you have. And
Right.
so, why is it important to Chris? Do you think that you'd want to have more content there versus less?
Does it factor into searchability SEO at all?
100%.
Okay.
Okay, so factors into SEO, but also this is your opportunity. It's called
Mm-hmm.
the about summary. And most people get this confused with their resume, because what they do,
Mm.
and I see this time and time again, they copy their resume, that they paste it in their experience section, and they paste it in their about summary, and they may tweak a couple things. They may put their email address at the bottom, but
Yeah.
you can clearly see it's either written in the third person, or you can just see that it's a copy paste job. And I'm going to
Yeah.
tell you why it's not adding any value. That about summary is about you. I'm talking to you watching this. It's about
Yeah.
you. It's not about who it's not about like the professional version of you. So what I teach my clients is, like, let's do this from a storytelling perspective. And let's
Mm.
swing for the fences right off the bat, because if you know anything about good stories and you see good videos, what usually captivates people is that hook, that headline.
Mm-hmm.
And so you want to start off. And so when I'm working with clients, I'm saying, think about your journey. What got you to here today?
Yeah.
Because what most people put is like, in 2011, I got promoted to VP, and like my life just started to get great. And it's like, your life was way before 2011. Like
Mhm.
what happened in your childhood? Like what lessons can you share with people that shows them who you are today and how you got there?
Right.
Okay. And so if that makes sense, like you've got to tell a story. And so if anyone that's watching this goes and reads mine, I'll tell you exactly what my first line says. It says, growing up with a mom that had one lung taught me a lot about what real adversity was.
Mm.
Right. So, and again, you share as much as you want to share. I want to share that because I want to share with people where I get my strength from. And that's
Yeah.
from the woman that raised me that had one lung, and when most of us have two.
Yeah.
And so if you read that first line, more than likely you're going to be compelled to continue reading. Okay, because you want to know more. Does that
Yep.
make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, again, hooks them into, okay, now I'm interested. What else is he saying down here? Yeah.
Yep. And if they make it through your about summary,
Mhm.
chances are they're going to check out your content,
Yeah.
and then that content is they're going to decide for themselves, does this content match what I just read?
Mm.
Does that
Mhm.
make sense? Does this
Yeah,
stuff correlate? Because that's super important, especially when you're doing a personal brand. You could say all these amazing things, but is this how you show up?
for sure.
Is this how you're showing up through your content?
Okay. So with that, so you have that. Now we're directing them to the content we're putting out there. How
Yeah.
do we, maybe we have a podcast, maybe we have a product service, something of that nature. How can we add value on LinkedIn through our content? What's a good way to show up with valuable content to grow
Yeah,
that?
well, one of the, I'll give you guys a quick pro tip, right? This is a pro tip for your profile. I see this very, very underutilized on LinkedIn. It's called the feature section.
Mm.
Okay. And so when you're on LinkedIn, you're on your profile, you hit the little more tab and it says you want to add something. You can add what's called a featured section.
Mhm.
And that featured section, what's really cool about it and the way that I teach my clients to use it is have that link to something or the one place you want all your traffic to go, right? So for you,
Okay.
Chris, maybe it's for Elevate Media, you want to give out, the 5 top tips to launching your podcast.
Mhm.
And that's a PDF resource that you want everyone to have because you want to nurture those relationships and get them on a
Yeah.
call so you can see if you can serve them or not. Does that make
Yep.
sense?
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
essentially you can call it a lead magnet, a landing page, whatever you want to call it. Well, what I'm instructing my clients to do is make that your one item on your featured section.
Mm.
Because what happens is when you're telling that story in your about summary, at the end of that, there's plenty of opportunity to talk about what you do, who you serve, and how you do it. And
Mhm.
then there's also opportunity, and this is very underutilized, to write a verbal call to action that says, click on my featured section for a free resource on how to
Mm.
launch your podcast. Right. So
Yeah.
so what are we doing? Right. They've learned about us from our billboard with maybe a call to action. They've read that headline and they know how we serve. And now they've learned about us and we've told them what to do next.
That's
Does that make
awesome.
sense?
Yeah, for sure. That flow, I didn't even think about that at the end, hey, click on the featured, because in mine, I think it's, if you want to hear more, let's chat kind of thing, schedule a call, and a link in the about, and then
But they have
I
to
just,
copy that link, right? Is it clickable or they
it's
have to copy
clickable
it?
on the phone at
Okay.
least. Yeah.
Yes, on the phone, on mobile, I believe. Yeah. So
The
I try to
featured
drive
is
them
different.
again from a measurement standpoint.
Hmm.
It's easier to point them to, especially a landing page, because most people have one. It's tracking clicks, it's tracking
Right.
conversions, right?
Yeah.
So you drive them to that one place, and again, that one place might change. That one
Right.
place might turn into 2, and now you've got 2 links. But
Hmm.
if you're from a measurement standpoint and from a conversion standpoint, I always instruct people just make it easy.
Yeah.
Drive your traffic to one place.
Cool. So you could even say, hey, yeah, your about could be talking about you and your podcast, and, follow or hit my featured to subscribe or follow, or to tune
100%.
in, and it
Yeah.
could
If
be
you
to
want
your
more
podcast.
downloads, point
Yeah.
it to the podcast. Yep.
Perfect. That's a
Yep.
good.
And mine's actually goes to like my about me page. It's like a
Mhm.
one page website. And then
Yep.
the second one is my podcast.
Awesome.
So, and it's up to you how much content you want to feature. But what
Mhm.
I always say is make sure that it's going to add value to your end goals on the platform.
Yeah.
Which my end goals are, want to reach more people, want to impact people in a positive way.
Yeah.
I want to show people that they can blaze their own trail through my show. I want to inspire people. So I have, content that maybe has a positive message. So again,
Mm.
position it around what your goals are on LinkedIn.
No, that's awesome. And so, I mean, that's a great start to optimize your profile there on LinkedIn. And if you want more tips and guidance with that, guys, make sure you definitely get connected with Jordan and utilize just the free content he puts out there, but then connect for more guidance with his programs and things of that nature. But with that, so now you've optimized your profile, and we can kind of wrap up with this kind of conversation. But
Yeah.
so your profile's optimized. How do we now organically grow? How do we,
Yeah.
connect people correctly without turning people off? Because, people are out there just, buy this, do this. How can we organically grow in the correct way on LinkedIn?
Yeah. So once optimization is done, that's the
Mhm.
foundation, right? That's like when
Yep.
you're building a house, it's that, foundation that you're building. And now that the foundation's strong, you've got to go into content strategy, right? So you've
Mhm.
got to determine, for you, what are your content pillars? Like what is the lens that you're going to be creating through on a consistent basis? And so for me, that's entrepreneurship, it's
Mm.
motivation, it's podcast, it's
Yep.
social media, it's the lanes that I actually play in, right, from a
Mhm.
business and a podcast standpoint. And
Yep.
so now that I've got that baseline, it's like now that I know the content I'm going to create, how am I going to create it? Am I going to do video? Am I going to do text posts? Am I going to do polls? Am I going to put out micro content or longer form content?
Mhm.
And then it's putting out the content, and
Yeah.
there's so many nuances, and I think this is where most people kind of get lost. Is it's not just about creating that content. Once that content's created, and even going into creating it, it's copywriting you got to think about. It's
Mhm.
open-ended questions. It's your hashtag strategy. Are you commenting so that you can drum up that engagement? Are you engaging and replying to everybody's comments? And then are you taking those relationships offline? So
Mhm.
there's so much that goes into that. And I would love if any of you have questions that watch this, you want to connect with me, send me a message on social media. I'm pretty easy to find, and I'm
Yeah.
happy to jump on a call.
Yeah. So with that, you mentioned different types of content out there. Do you find on LinkedIn one weighs heavier with the quote unquote algorithm?
Yeah, well, yeah,
Video
right
versus
now with
post?
most platforms,
Mhm.
Chris, it's what's new, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
so
Right.
what's newer on LinkedIn is polls. So polls are performing or higher organically than the other stuff because there's more attention. What's
Mm.
also newer on LinkedIn is audio, and so that's being
Okay.
pushed more. It's a Clubhouse style
Mm.
audio only conversations, and so since that's new, that's also getting pushed more. And so that's
Interesting.
the way that most platforms work. When Reels
Yeah.
came out, like, why are they giving away a bunch of money? They want a bunch of people to use it.
Right.
And so if you want to find out which content to create, look and see what just came out, and that's where I would put your focus.
Okay, awesome. That's good to know. Now, yeah, I guess I did see a little bit about that audio stuff on LinkedIn. Now I'm gonna have to dive into that a little bit more. It's an interesting thing. Clubhouse was okay, uh, and so this will be interesting to see what that's like on LinkedIn. But yeah, no, that's great. Just kind of guidance with that is focus on the newer things, but still have kind of utilize some of the other pieces of content going forward with that.
Yeah,
Um,
consistency is the name of the game. I mean,
yeah,
that's the bottom line. If
for
you're
sure.
gonna show up, do it consistently. And my advice is make sure you're engaging with your audience, because if
Hmm.
you post and ghost, you post and you leave. When you come back and find no one there, there's a reason. It's because you didn't stick around.
Yeah.
Because it takes time, right?
Mm.
Like you are a commenter. We all comment on stuff, and that
Yep.
takes time out of your day. And so if
Yeah,
someone's gonna comment to you, you should at least have that decency to reply back. And
for sure.
reciprocity is a real thing.
Yeah. I agree. So I'm curious with your opinion too on this uh next question I have with messaging people. Is there a good etiquette to do that?
Yes,
Is it
there is,
okay just
Chris.
to kind of go add people and message? Yeah, let's
Listen,
dive into that a little bit.
listen. Here's my thoughts on it, and this is my perspective.
Uh-huh.
Take it for what it's worth, or leave it for what it's worth. It's up to you. But I always say, why do people go for dessert before the appetizer's even served?
Mm,
Like, what's the point of that? What's the point of? Does that make sense? And so,
yeah.
So like when you come into my DMs and you're trying to sell, usually they're trying to sell me what I sell to other people. So
Right.
they haven't done any research,
Yeah.
and I find myself in the DMs coaching people
Hmm.
because I have empathy and I feel
Yeah.
bad that they're using a terrible strategy. Now, does that strategy work for some people? Is it a numbers strategy? 1,000%. That's what it is. And
Mhm.
if you send 1,000 people messages, there's a small percentage of them that are going to say yes,
Yep.
but your reputation isn't going to look great.
Right,
You know what
right.
I'm saying? And like
Mhm.
I'm in this for the long term, not the short term. So I'm into, not transactions, but let's talk transformation. Like, how do I
Mhm.
transform people's lives? And I heard that from the great John Maxwell, and that changed my life. He's like, don't be about transactions, be about transformation. I can't transform you if I sell you something the first second I meet you.
Right.
There's no transformation because we hadn't built a relationship. There's nothing sustainable there. And
Mm.
so what I do whenever I'm connecting with someone, and I'll literally, this is my script. It's like, hey, Chris, thanks so much for connecting. If there's any way I can add value to you or provide assistance, please let me know. Have a great week. Right?
Yep.
That's what it should be, because
Yeah.
that's what it is. But like if I met Chris in real life, I'm not gonna be like, hey Chris, great to meet you. Do you want to buy some products and services?
Yeah, unless you're the
Think about
Girl Scouts.
how weird that would be if we communicated like that as human beings.
Right,
It
yep.
should be like, hey, great connecting. Like if there's any way we can help each other out or collaborate, I'd love to do that, because
Yeah.
that's true. That's actually how I feel.
Mhm.
And the people that are sending the sales immediately after connecting, they're
Yeah,
they're not in it to know you.
right.
Does that make sense? They're in
Oh,
it to get a
100%.
commission. They're in
Dude,
it to
yeah.
win now, and
Yep.
they're not thinking about the future.
Yeah, and I when I started, I mean, that's how I was being taught was, "Hey, just numbers, send out a bunch of
Yeah.
just sales messages," and then, it felt crummy to me,
Yeah.
and I went with it for a while, and then, I learned from people who were actually doing what I wanted to do and get to the levels I wanted to
Yeah.
do. They're like, "Hey," like you said, it's about transformation, it's about relationship, and so definitely, change that, and it can still improve. I'm still looking at
100%.
my
Yeah.
messaging, and I'm like, did that come off too strong? Did that come off the wrong way? Like, again, just kind of what you've iterated on everything is, test it.
Test it.
If you have people come back and say, "Hey, like, I don't even know you," or whatever it might be,
You
maybe.
want me to solve your problem right now, Chris?
Yeah, go ahead. Do it, do it,
You
do it.
ready? So this
Yeah,
is another pro tip, but this is bonus hour for you
there
guys.
we
Okay,
go.
so here's what you do. If you think your messages, they're making you kind of feel a little weird, leave them a voice note,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Leave them a voice note.
Yep.
Why not? Why not? You can probably say what you wanted to say. You have 60 seconds to say what you want to say. And I'll tell you this, when I get voice notes, and you probably can attest to this if
Mhm.
you've gotten them, it feels special.
Yeah.
So maybe if you're in your head about the message, change the medium of how you're delivering it.
Yeah. I've done that,
Okay?
and I've done actually, like, little video clips too.
Video. There you go.
Yeah.
It's another great idea. Like
Trying
show
to
up on camera, send them a
yeah,
video,
practicing those
Send
little
them a
things, but
voice note.
it's
Like mix it up, guys. Like don't if you're getting stuck on one thing, like
mhm.
you're stuck on it. So you
Yeah.
gotta change. Like how do you get unstuck? You gotta change your environment. You can't
Yep.
keep doing the same thing, right? So
Right.
hopefully that's helpful.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think it is, and you just have to take you know note on what's happening, the results you're getting, and yeah, tweak and test and just change things up. So, man, this has been great. LinkedIn was a real kind of dark horse for me. Social media wise, it's probably my least. I'm not going to do anything on LinkedIn, and I started getting more into it, and and plus it helps we provide services for businesses, and so I was like, okay, that's where I need to be. So I was learning more on my own, and this has been a good conversation. So people, like, this is gold, guys. If you're trying to grow on LinkedIn, I hope you are taking notes. If not, go back and watch this again, connect with Jordan, but just phenomenal. So I appreciate you sharing all that.
No problem.
Yeah, the last thing I kind of want, I ask all my guests basically is, the fifth trait of pencil leadership is that everyone's created uniquely with potential and purpose to leave a positive mark on the world. And so, when everything is said and done for you here on Earth, Jordan, what do you hope your positive mark is?
Yeah, mine is all about legacy. It's
Mm,
legacy for my kids. I mean, we've got 5 children, and we didn't really dive into my story or journey, but
yeah.
very humble beginnings. Shouldn't have made it more than probably 3 or 4 times, and didn't have a father, didn't meet my dad till I was 12, and so like raising my kids is super important to me, trying to be present for them, but also, as I got older, realizing that I can't carry resentment. So getting my dad involved in their lives and having him be a part of that. And this is why I do everything I do. It's for them. It's to create that legacy, knowing that I've helped them and I've set them up, but not given them things, but I've given them lessons and I've taught them. And my hopes is that my kids are involved in things that I do. But if they don't like it, I'm going to support whatever they want to do. And I think as a parent, that's all that you can ask for, is that, with your kids, because I've seen it done the wrong way in a few different occasions. And it's, let's have those kids do what we want them to do because we missed out on X, Y, or Z. But what my goal is, let me just invest in their strengths. Let me just invest in them. And that's what happiness is going to look like for me as a parent.
That's awesome. So good. And yeah, just by watching you, connecting with you, and just seeing what you've been doing, you're definitely building that legacy. So it's great to be, connected with you and having you on the show. Where can people find you, find out more about you, man?
Yeah, so probably the easiest place, you can just go to jordanjmendoza.com. You'll learn a little bit more about me. You can connect, learn about some of the things I do, the podcast, some of the YouTube stuff. Also all on social media, LinkedIn, send me a connection request. Instagram is at Jordan J. Mendoza, TikTok at Jordan J. Mendoza, Twitter, pretty much the same handle everywhere. And I'd love to connect with you. And what I'd love to do for your audience, Chris, we've been connected a while. I'd love to just do something special for the listeners of Pencil Leadership. So, I'll just basically set this for about 48 hours. So within 48 hours of this being published or you watching it live, if you DM me on Instagram, the word pencil. So just DM me the word pencil. I'll actually give you $500 off my 12-week LinkedIn course.
Snap.
All right. So that's for Pencil Leadership listeners, 48 hours, DM me that word pencil. But here's the thing. If you're not committed, if you're not willing to invest 12 weeks into you, okay, if you're not willing to do that, don't DM me, because you have to be ready. You've got to be committed, because my program isn't easy. Like, people that take it, they're like, why do I have homework, Jordan? Like, I paid you. And I'm like, well, if you want to do this right, you're going to do the dang homework. So if you're ready, if you're committed, and you're ready to invest in yourself and the business, DM me the word pencil and I'll give you $500 off. But you've got to be ready.
Guys, if you're ready, take him up on that, because he's crushing it. He knows what he's doing, and he's going to guide you the right way. So appreciate that, Jordan.
No problem.
And your willingness to be on here today. Again, guys, Jordan Mendoza, founder, CEO of Blaze Your Own Trail Consulting. Jordan, thanks again for being on Pencil Leadership.
Hey, my pleasure, buddy. Thank you for having me.
And thanks so much for tuning into this episode today. If you found value at all from this episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It just helps us get this show, these messages out in front of more people. And don't forget to share this with someone who you think could benefit from listening to as well. Now let's go out and be pencil leaders.